Hey everybody, welcome back to the Puddcast. This is episode 30 with Luke Gifford. Now Luke and I, we ended up going for a couple of hours on this podcast, so I've decided to split it into two parts so you can digest it a little bit more easily. We covered a whole range of things, all relating to the emotional life of a man, how to master your heart and become a transformative male. To be honest, this has probably been the most impactful discussion I've had on this show for me personally. The fruit in my life as a result of putting into practice some of the things that Luke talks about here have been really quite remarkable. So, I'll leave you with that. Dive in. This is the first half, and then next week there'll be the second half up here on the show, episode 31. Enjoy. Okay, everybody, welcome back to the podcast with me, Jonathan Puddle. I have got Luke Gifford on the line today. So, Luke, I have kind of heard about you through your wife and through you guys and your marriage and your journey, and then your wife's Heart Made Whole book, and then I just literally came across your stuff on Instagram like last week, and I was reading everything, and I was like, man, I want this guy to be my bro. I want beers with this guy. And
I'm so curious what the first post you read was.
Let me see. Maybe I can find it.
I'm so curious what the first, because there's some stuff in there, man. Sometimes I feel like, and this goes along with the post that I made today, actually. Humility is accepting your greatness.
I don't know.
Sometimes I feel like my Instagram has a lot of hidden treasures in it.
Yeah, here's what it was. First of all, I mostly follow. Well, I follow a whole bunch of people, but I follow a lot of like women bloggers because they own the world of blogging and Instagram.
Right.
And I get all my learning and my inspiration for what I should be posting from them. And so I was going through your wife's stuff, and then the Spiritually Sexy account, which I think the first thing I noticed was just the post called Penis. And I was like,
my wife played the penis game on Instagram.
Yeah, she did. And I thought that's great because I'm known amongst my friends as the one who will provoke those conversations. Actually, my son, I wasn't going to share this on air, but I will. We're sitting in the car. we're driving. Where were we? We were literally driving to dinner at our pastor's house on Friday. And my 8-year-old is sitting in the back seat singing, "My penis has a purpose. My penis has a purpose." And my wife and I are just like, and I said, "Yeah, it does." And then under my breath, I sort of said, "The purpose is babies," which is not strictly what I would actually say is the truth, but
what would you strictly say is the truth?
Well, I would say it's babies and pleasure.
Come on.
And so I said the purpose
pleasure and procreation.
That's it. I said, man, babies. And then my 10-year-old just kind of nodded and winked and said, sex.
And here is my opinion. You're doing a great job, man.
Thank you.
If that's the reactions, if that's the song being sung and the reaction you're getting, that's a sign that you're doing a great job.
So after seeing that post, I then came across your stuff, and this is what I read. Put your hand on your heart, close your eyes, ask your heart, how are you feeling? Mm-hmm. And no matter what you hear, see, or feel, respond to your heart with an "I love you." And I sat on the couch, and I had a little cry. And then
it does make you cry, right? Like even right now, you're reading it my words to me, and I'm like, well, shoot.
So then I clicked on your profile and clicked on message, and I said, "Hey, man, can we chat?"
yeah, come on, I love that.
And here we are.
Oh, I love that. And that's like the soft stuff. There's some pretty intense stuff in there too. So I like that, man. I like that. That's the one that grabbed your attention.
So Mile High View, you're right now, you're offering this Master Heart training to men. Oh, no. You know what? That's a lie. I remember the truth. That was the second post I read. The first one was your screenshot of like your Zoom meeting or whatever, your coaching session with all the guys that you're coaching.
The dudes.
That's what it was. And you were just basically saying how like
post too.
Yeah, like how over like the last X number of weeks I'm seeing these guys grow and own all of their journey and their garbage and face up to who they are as men. And that I was like, yes, who is this guy? And then I clicked on your profile and read the heart post. And then I was sold forever on Luke Gifford.
Oh, it feels good. That feels good. We're having a little bro moment.
Bromance.
A little computer screen to computer screen bromance.
So what's the coaching?
That feels good.
Where does talk to me about this?
What I'm doing with my men is this has a much bigger context than just coaching to me. This is about and I'm going to use a very dangerous word in some cultures, but this has to do with evolution and the evolution of what masculinity, manhood, and what a man is in our world. And there's lots of debate right now. There's lots of negative tones right now. There's lots of talk going around about toxic masculinity. And I look at that very differently. My heart is very open to the masculine, and to me, it's not necessarily about toxicity, but it's about our unwillingness to grow. Mm-hmm. Right. So when you have a cesspool, it does become toxic. And right now, we have a bunch of people who are asserting opinions and ideals instead of asking men how they want to grow and who they want to show up as. And if you would talk to most men, they would be able to give you a lot of them would say, I don't know, right off the bat. But then when they'd start thinking about it, which is just a piece of advice, it's a good way to just throw a slow pitch softball to a man and then let him have it. Don't expect a response in the moment. Let him have it for a couple of weeks and see what he says. Because most men can get very clear about who they want to be and how they want to show up in the world. My biggest pet peeve is that there's a lot of, let me tell you who to be and what to be.
For sure.
But I'm not going to really give you a practical how to be that.
Oh, yeah.
And when I say pet peeve, I'm being really calm. It drives me absolutely nuts if somebody is telling me what I need to be and not telling me how to be that. And for me, I wanted to provide so Master Heart, my company, our tagline is the evolution of human being.
Nice.
Right. And what I wanted to do was introduce men to what's already happening inside their bodies. Mm-hmm. And let's see if we can figure out how to optimize our inner world, meaning the physiology that we've adapted, the knowledge that we've learned from that physiology, and the melding of that physiology with the emotional, spiritual world, and that being the center point, the heart being the center point of all that, and see if these men can't show up in the world the way that they see themselves as showing up if they're given a bit of day-to-day guidance on how to do that.
Absolutely.
So and the way that I communicate that is most men don't have a very clear, structured framework for their inner emotional and spiritual world. Mm. Because of my own journey and some of the things that I've been through, I believe that I have been able to put together some puzzle pieces. And so far in the many people that I've helped, those puzzle pieces have been, when I give them those puzzle pieces, they begin to have their own light bulbs, their own realizations, their own revelations. Just by taking this framework, they put their own content in it, and the content of who they are and who they want to be. And I kind of help them structure a lot of these things. And then they go, and their whole life shifts and transform. So my language for that is transformative masculinity. And in order to be a transformative human being, we must first know how to transform the lead inside of us to gold So the old alchemical conversation. And once we are able to do that within ourselves, then we become transformative in the world around us. So we being the nucleus, right? Us as men being the ones, if we don't, the way that men commit, the way that men give themselves is from them, their self and their sense of self. If a man doesn't have a solid, clear sense of himself, then he doesn't know, he doesn't have anything to give, have anything to commit with. Yeah. And so how do we practically piece that together in a man's awareness? And then how do we, once he's got awareness of it, how do we build confidence in that sense of self? And then how do we help him translate that into the world around him for transformative masculinity instead of toxic masculinity? And so that's an overview of some of the process. Now we have 8 weeks. And we basically start slow. I've found the things through my work and my practice and especially through my own process, my own deep process. What are the things that are the most efficient? That if I took a crowbar to this, it would give me the most impact with the least amount of work. That's right? Leverage point. That to me is wisdom at its finest. We have a nanny, and she has the most brilliant way of looking at things. She calls herself lazy, right? And she's like, well, hire me because I'm lazy. I'm going to figure out the best way to do it. And she is not lazy. She believes she is not lazy, but her belief that she's lazy helps her out in that it sets her free in that, well, I just know that I'm going to do this the easiest way, which makes it the most efficient thing, right? So I love that perception of things because I wanted to find the practices, not the techniques, you could be called techniques, but for me, I call them practices because I think the mindset that we have as men is that that everything's game time. And I don't want us to change that. I actually want us to realize that if everything in our life is game time, it's important for us to have a practice time. And it's important to us to be practicing. That's good. And so let me give you some practices that actually will enhance and optimize game time for you. Yeah. And I have what's called the Master Heart Method, which is I have a piece called the Most Loved Self. And the most loved self is something I believe exists inside of everyone. Right? And it is the person, the aspect in you, the essence in you, the core of who you are that has perceived every experience you've ever been through as a loving experience, which is going to rock some heads, right? It has been through every experience you've ever been through. It's been through all the pain you have ever been through. This part of you has been through all of the injustice that you've experienced, all of the trauma you've experienced, and yet it is willing and capable of seeing all those as something that left you more loved than when that experience began. Yeah, come on. And building a relationship and a connection with that aspect of yourself, it is a really powerful practice. Then we move to what I call predefining, and this is a term that I've keyed, where it's important for us to master our emotions. And I don't want to get too complicated, but there's a way that I see us as beings: physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. Most of us call we believe that we are living in a spiritual life, but really what we're doing is injecting our minds, our intellect, with spiritual ideas, but we're not actually living and embodying and practicing those spiritual things.
Right. There's a dualistic kind of
That's right.
Here and back.
So, and the key to that, to me, the thing that's most left out and most devalued is our emotional aspect. And the emotional aspect is the key to actually moving from a mentalized obesity into a spiritual life. And so if we can learn to value our emotions, appropriate our emotions, make aware the emotions that we have deemed shadow and negative, and actually make them useful, which requires our learning to feel.
Yeah.
And so part of the process that we do is that these men learn to feel. but they learn to feel within a structure that allows them to feel powerful as they do that. But predefining is basically, I used to have pretty debilitating social anxiety, and I was high functioning, but I just was incredibly anxious and incredibly aware of all kinds of things. I also had some mental health issues, just some trauma that messed with me. And so I had to come up with some way to show up in my world in a strong presence. And this practice became something that I did before I went to a party, before I went to any meetings, before as I transitioned from work to home to be with my family, before I went into work every day, before I had a date with my wife. Before I did anything, I did what I call predefining. So I teach these men that, which is pretty fun, for them to learn that you can actually actively anchor into any feeling you want to feel. But the significant part of that is you're not ignoring the feelings that you need to heal. So that's the next step, which is what I call the emotional deep dive. So we have the most loved self, predefining, and the emotional deep dive. The emotional deep dive is a very clear, structured way for you to uncover the layers. So let's see if I can keep this clean. When you're born with a heart of flesh. You're born with a soft, strong, tender, powerful heart. And then life craps on it.
Yep.
And whether it's our parents' crap, our teachers' crap, our preachers' crap, our own crap, our brothers and sisters' crap, our aunts and uncles' crap, our neighbors' crap, society's crap, whatever it is, those layers of crap, and they're emotional, surround our heart. So they're shaped like our heart, but they petrify. They petrify. They're both hardened and they're terrorized. And this is where what we would call our ego forms. And the ego gets a bad rap. We talk about ego death and screw your ego. That's a bad rap. Your ego has been there protecting you your whole life. It's helped you survive. But what we want to do is soften that. And so I teach these guys a practice that allows them to do that. This practice is the most incredible thing because let's just say that, have you ever triggered before?
Oh, for sure.
Right. So let's just say that I can show you how any trigger you have is never about the person who's triggering you, give you a clear way to see that every time it happens, and give you a clear way to use all those triggers. And you can do it in, as you practice, it'll take you 20 minutes or so. But once you get practiced at it, it can take less than a minute to deep dive that trigger and to find out what's actually pulling the trigger inside you. Yeah. And it completely changes the dynamics of the relationship when these men begin to do that. It's been amazing to watch them come back and go and just geek out at how their life is changing because they're learning these practices. Yeah. And then we get even deeper where we access, we make clear the inner feminine expression so that it doesn't run. Many men, they kind of get lost in this and they don't even realize it, but it doesn't run their life. They give their inner feminine a place of acceptance and honor. And it actually, when they do that, it actually heightens their awareness of their masculinity and their expression in the world of their masculinity. It's really fascinating. And then we dig into archetypes, which is the masculine archetypes, which are even deeper than any part of they're way deep in our psyche, but we activate the warrior and the mystic, the lover, and especially the king in their lives. So this is like the big view, but that's what we do.
Man. So. And you do this in how many weeks?
8 weeks.
Because that's sort of like the last 8 years of my life. And if it could have been 8 weeks, that would have been great. Probably a lot of people in my life would have been happy with 8 weeks rather than 8 years. But, but here
there's so much in this we could talk that I wish I could express to people in a short amount of time based on what our society's missing.
Of course.
And the way I use the emotional deep dive. Each of those layers is petrified as a layer of death and terror. Yeah. Right. And in our society, we don't have clear initiations. And so it's hard for a man to go, I am a man now. Right. And for him to understand that traditionally an initiation deals no women. There is death involved because a man needs to know how he responds in the face of death. And so one of the ways that I paint the deep dive is these are all emotions that for you in the past have felt like death, and they've left you feeling terrified. And so now we are going to use this we're going to frame this as an initiation for you into a space inside yourself that actually feels like you're going to die. Yeah. And it does. Like, how many people listening to this, or at times in your life, have you need to feel, you need to tap into your grief, or you need to like harness your anger, you need to own that stuff, but it feels like if you do, it's never going to end.
No, for sure. Yeah.
And it's death. And this is,
it's like an abyss.
There's so many things around this conversation. It's always been this way. It's always going to be this way. Confronting that thing so that you kill it now, quote unquote. You kill your fear of it, essentially, and learn to feel it and befriend the dragon. There's so many movies I want to talk about right now.
Did you ever read Dune?
You know what? I love fantasy stuff, and I've never read Dune.
Because in Dune, there's this refrain: "Fear is the mind killer. I will face the fear. I will let it pass through me. And when it passes through, only I will remain."
Ooh.
And it's just like so
that
good.
Is literally my language.
Well, you need to read Dune.
These are dark tunnels that you have to surrender to the tunnel. Surrender to feeling through.
Yeah.
Once you're through it, you become the light.
Yeah. Let me tell you a couple of stories.
Come on, this is so beautiful.
Let me tell you a couple of stories, and for the listeners to maybe even just drill down to a personal level for me. Some of you guys will heard maybe a couple of these stories, but in 2015, my grandfather died, and he was a huge figure in my life. And he had a heart attack. He wasn't recovering well. The doctors discovered cancer. I went back to New Zealand to be with him, and he'd been holding on to his strength, turned out, because the day I got there, he was still on his own, walking on his own 2 feet, cooking his own meals, and he died 10 days later. Like, it went rapidly downhill because he had basically been holding on to everything for me to arrive. And so we spent 7 days just at each other's side, sharing stories, incredibly intimate. He shared super vulnerable, revealing things, failures in his life, regrets that he'd carried for years, and I was just, I felt almost, on the one hand, I felt like a priest taking my own grandfather to confession, and then on the other hand, I just felt like a boy sitting, with his grandfather. Anyway, it's this emotional savagery.
Wow.
And it was honestly like, at first I thought it's like drinking from a fire hose, like in terms of the raw emotional content. But then it was more and more and more. And I'm on my own from like my wife and kids, right? And so I'm dealing also with my own, like, I miss my wife, I'm horny, I feel guilty for being horny. I'm like with my grandfather who's dying, and I'm feeling sad about myself and all this kind of stuff, right? And I realized one day, I'm like, this is a tornado. Like, this is a massive whirlwind. And I feel like God is asking me to stare it down and to write it out and to say, will you not flinch at the fear of death, but will you write it? Will you just write it? And I was just like, I don't even have a grid for this.
That was 2015, so 3 years ago?
Yeah, I think it was, yeah.
That's one of the big things. Death, often of a grandfather, is one of the big things that kicks men into the transition and the transformation that begins to happen.
Yeah.
So that's a fascinating.
So it's exactly okay. So this next story will prove your point. I come back to Toronto, and I get into a busy season with work, and it's one thing after the next, after the next, after the next. I end up kind of emotionally entangled with someone that's not my wife. Now, I should say, this person was not aware. There was nothing improprietous that took place, but I developed an obsession.
It's all happening inside your mind.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it all kind of comes crashing down. And I remember October of 2015, I sat in my living room and everything just shattered. Everything broke apart. And I could literally, I mean, the word literally is so overused, but I mean, I could feel in my skull, my psyche shatter into like a million pieces.
Mine was more of a melting, but I know what you're saying.
Yeah, it was, for me, it was, I could feel it shatter, and I could see it. I could see all of my mind on the floor and utterly broken. And my children are playing all around. I'm sitting in the living room. My kids are playing all around me. And I remember just feeling, I only lasted 30 years, and I'm already broken, and I can't even father my children or be a husband. I'm just broken now.
Mm-hmm.
And I've talked about kind of how then I grew back from that in other episodes where God was basically like, would you just trust me every moment? But no, like, fix me. That's my whole framework for what this life is about. Fix me so I can go and be really useful again for the kingdom. Praise God. And turns out my recovery looked very, very different from that. But again, this was ringing in my head actually when you were talking about the inner self. One of the things you said about the self, because as I began to meet with some older men and talk through my experience, one of these guys said, who's known me for many, many years, he said to me, Jonathan, I don't think you fell in love with that other woman. I think you saw yourself in her, and you need to fall back in love with yourself. And there was an aspect in there of prideful love of self that I saw it promoted in someone else, and I wanted it in an unhealthy way. But all of that simply exposed the underlying truth that I had lost myself somewhere along the way. Right.
It's a fascinating concept. And I've heard another teacher teach this. What if nobody's misbehaving? Right? What if, and that's what the guy was saying to you. What if you're not misbehaving? What if you're just trying to find something, and this is the way your mind is going about finding it?
Exactly.
But if we have a context in a world that calls this behavior misbehaving, but what if you're willing to go all the way through with it? What if you're willing to let things shatter to find that sense of self, right? Which is a fascinating way, and oftentimes a beautiful way, because as men, this is going to sound silly, except to those who understand it. But for men, it's very important that we go through something ourselves. And it's very, very important that we make decisions for ourselves, right? Like, oftentimes, you can put this in a marriage context. Your wife wants you to go and do something, or wants to change the way things have been done. And it's important for a man to go within himself, get clear on his decision, independent of his wife's desire, and then come in with agreement. And it's just important as men that we do that. It's the same concept here with you, where it's like, and I love just kind of let myself float off in this thought of, you were just trying to fall in love with yourself, but nobody had ever taught you, or you never imagined that you could love yourself, so you projected it onto somebody else.
Absolutely.
Right? Oh,
Absolutely. So
beautiful, man.
A year or two later, we moved out of the city, changed careers. And I remember one day I was brushing my kids' teeth. And you got to understand, like, I'm the nicest guy. Everybody loves me. I'm the life of the party. I'm so fun.
Yeah.
And people would describe me as probably the least angry person that they've ever met. but someone who's still, like, has emotions, right? And isn't just shut down. Or so I thought. And I'm brushing my kids' teeth, and one of them was being goofy and I think spat in my face.
Hey.
And you talk about being triggered. And I spun out of the room, and my arm wound up, and I was like, if I don't get out of this bathroom right now, one of these kids is getting hit. And that's not okay. So I spun out of the room, and I punched the wall as hard as I possibly could. And I was determined to get through it, because ultimately this is where my heart was at. Like, we've got to get through this, man. We've got to get through this. And so I worked really hard to get my fist through the wall. And for some reason, I don't know.
Did you make it?
No, I don't know if it was building code in the 80s when my house was built. But I've done some renovations recently, and I've discovered that my entire house has 2 layers of drywall. every single wall is doubled up. Not just extra thick drywall, but 2 panels. Doubled up. And my hand just bounced off, and it took 6 months for the swelling to go down. I very nearly broke my hand. And, the kids were all a bit, like, shocked and also just kind of like, well, that was stupid. And then, they got off to bed. The next day, I jumped on Kijiji and I found a guy selling a heavy bag, and I drove out to his house and bought it and hung it up in my house. And my kid said to me, "Daddy, that's so smart. Now you can punch the bag. You don't have to punch the wall."
Come on.
And I discovered that my depression was unexpressed anger. And as I sat for the better part of the year with my anger, I discovered that my anger was unexpressed grief.
Right.
And I spoke to my mother, and she said, "Oh, I'm very sorry. That would be my fault. I grew up with the belief that anger was sin, and so I never allowed you to witness it. I never even saw my parents have a disagreement. My parents ended up divorced, but I never even saw them hold a contrary opinion to one another, let alone yell or fight or be angry." And I'm just like, finding myself, finding my emotions, learning to sit with them, to be present, to listen.
Honor them.
To put my hand on to honor them. Exactly. To say, what if nobody disobeyed? Anger. Okay, cool.
Right.
What if you're not a bad guy? What if you're profoundly misunderstood? Oh, I hate being misunderstood.
What if everything you're doing is in the context of love?
Yeah.
Right? Even when you spun out of that room and you got angry, what if your anger was from love? Right? What if it was?
Because we consider love just one of like a plurality of emotions, right?
Mm-hmm.
That we can just cycle through all these emotions. But what if that's not love at all? Like, what if? I mean, obviously there is an emotion of love, but what if there's something deeper?
What if there's something inside you, your heart maybe, that was trying to get you to pay attention? And so it goes, what's the best response right now that might make him pay attention? Anger.
Yeah.
Right? And it did. You paid attention. Not many men pay attention.
Yeah.
Right?
My friend Mark says he's got a book called The Wisdom of Your Heart.
Okay.
And he says emotions always tell the truth.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just often not the truth that we think or that we expect or that the surface level. Yeah, my emotion says I need to go and punch my kid because I'm angry with them. Well, no, actually, that's not what your emotion's telling you. Your emotions push you to action, and the action that you're feeling, is based on perhaps a faulty narrative here. So let's dig into the narrative and find out.
That's
You're
right.
feeling trapped. Oh, you're actually fundamentally feeling trapped in your life right now.
And which is a huge one for men, right? They're so scared of being trapped. And it also depends on what level of their life they're in. Like, it's such a fascinating thing. Your emotions, as a boy, are there to guard your heart for you, right? But if you don't learn how to befriend them, they'll never become your guide.
That's
right?
good.
Right? And if you can befriend them, appropriate them, and listen, I'm not talking about befriend them as in let's turn all our emotions into puppies and kittens. Some of your emotions are dragons, and you need to be friends with dragons.
Yeah.
Right? Those dragons help you in your life, and you know how to consciously use those dragons. Go see Aquaman.
Yeah.
Right?
I haven't seen it yet, but I remember just the trailer. I was already like, I didn't even care for this character, but something about this trailer is messing me up right now. I think I need to see this movie.
We're going to see it a second time today, taking our son. There is a monster in the movie, and the monster is against him at first until he is able to say one thing and admit it out loud. And then the monster becomes his greatest ally.
Yeah, see, I've felt like my emotions were a liability. Most of my life, that is the way I felt. And I was a noisy guy. I was like always being told to speak with a quieter voice. And I was always falling in love with people. Like, honestly, I just love people and I love women. And I'm always the guy at the party who's chatting to his friend's wife. And it felt to me like a liability for the longest time.
If it's unconscious, it is a liability.
For sure. But then I, began raising my sons and seeing in a couple of my sons the passion of their inner person.
Right.
And I just was like, good Lord, I never want to teach you that your emotions are a liability.
Right.
I want to teach you to harness and to learn how to tame the beast. Mm-hmm. I said to my pastor the other day when we were camping in the winter and it was cold, and I'm like, why are we doing this? And he's like, because I love the outdoors. I'm like, yeah, why did I come with you? And I said to him, you know what, Adam?
Camping in cold in Canada.
Yeah, man. So you know what? Today it is minus 28 degrees Celsius, which is about minus 13 Fahrenheit.
Shut up.
So
I'm like putting
cold.
on a jacket and getting mad at how cold it is here, and it's 24 degrees.
And I said to him, and I didn't even realize this was profound until this moment, right now, here with you. I said, Adam, I feel like my heart is like a wild horse, like a stallion, and it needs a rein and sometimes a bit and sometimes blinders. It needs to be steered well. But at any point in the last handful of years, it would have been a beast. It would have been a monster. It would have been a dangerous, unfathomable thing. And now I discover that I'm describing my own heart as Black Beauty,
right? Not
as a horrible monster.
As you're talking, I'm thinking about Avatar, the movie Avatar, where the big red, the huge red, I forget what he calls it, but he has to go and
the one that no one's flown in 1,000 generations.
He has to create the bond with it to become the chief.
Taruk Makto or something like that.
Yeah, he has to form, and the way the movie is set up, they literally bond with the animals, right? So he has to go and bond with it in order for it to become, part of his experience, a valuable part of his experience. Yeah. And that's what we're talking about. And we as men, again, we're born with that soft, strong, tender, powerful heart. Life craps on it, and our emotions are guards to that, and they're meant to be that way. But now there is a way for us as men to allow our emotions to become guides. And if we can allow them to become guides, we return to, I have a phrase, all becoming is just remembering. Right? All becoming is just remembering. And we don't need to have the specific memories, but there was a context of emotion that happened to you as a little boy. And there is a practice that you can do to father that little boy within you, right? And to mother that little boy as well, and to rescue that little boy, to be the hero that boy wanted, to be all those things. And this practice is one of those things that can be really life-changing if you do the work, because as little boys, we're told that we're too much. Yeah. Like I watch my son, his energy level is just through the roof compared to my energy level. And that's not a bad thing, right? In fact, I wrote the other day, I wrote a thing because I was just sitting and kind of contemplating about this whole concept. I don't think I'll be able to find it real quickly, but essentially instead of requesting that he match my energy, which leaves him feeling inconsequential and unimportant and unsubstantiated, what if I, being the conscious parent, being the master heart, what if I matched his energy and found homeostasis there with him? Yeah. Instead of discounting who he is, I have the awareness and ability to go, no, I'm valuable, which means I can go into his box, right? Which puts the effort on me and actually helps him to become and realize, and sometimes not even, he becomes valuable and he doesn't even have to be aware that I did that. Yeah. Right. Which to me feels a lot like God and what he does. And so in that way, I partner with something very deeply spiritual.
Thanks, Luke. That is the end of part 1. Tune in next week for part 2 with Luke Gifford. You've been listening to the Puddcast with me, Jonathan Puddle. I've dedicated my life to helping people access the freedom that God designed for them and to love others sacrificially, just like God does. Basically, I think we're meant to live like God himself, and I want to help you get there. This podcast is part of that, and every week I interview people to dig into the rich soul of a Jesus-centered life. make sure to check out some of the earlier episodes. I've had everyone from Olympic athletes to local friends to famous DJs and major Christian leaders like Brian Zahn, Priscilla Shirer, and Sheila Walsh. If this podcast has been a blessing to you, head over to jonathanpuddle.com and grab my free book, You Are the Solution to Someone's Problem. I'm pretty sure it's going to brighten your day. And if you enjoy that too, then would you consider supporting me on Patreon? You can get one-on-one spiritual coaching from me, as well as a private supporters-only podcast with unique content that I don't make available to the public. There's a number of other benefits there as well. You'll find me at patreon.com/JonathanPuddle. Thank you so much for listening, and may you be filled with grace and peace from the Lord God, who created all things, holds all things together, and is personally invested in you.